Good morning, colleagues. I think we're ready to start now. Just to apologize for the late start, but I think we are all here and comfortable and warm, so we'll begin now. My name is Shuvai Nyoni, and I'm the coordinator of the ALC Alumni Association, for those of you who don't know me. And it's my job this morning to welcome you. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the second African Center Alumni Conference, hosted and coordinated by the Alumni Association. As some of you may or may not know, the association's overall goal is to promote and encourage the cooperation, coordination, and unity of purposes and objectives of all alumni who have previously undertaken King's College or ALC fellowships. The Alumni Association exists also to support the ALC's goals and to strengthen ties between alumni and the community. It is against this backdrop that the Alumni Association was formed in 2012. This is indeed a gathering of great minds, and we are privileged to have in our midst great mentors, trailblazers, thought leaders, such as our guest and keynote speaker, Professor Tade Aina, who is the Program Director of Higher Education and Libraries in Africa, International Program at the Carnegie Corporation. Many of you know that the Carnegie Corporation has been one of the center's greatest supporters. We also have in our midst our very own Dr. Fumi Olonishakin, belovedly known as Dr. O. Welcome and thank you for coming. We'd like to welcome and thank also the Acting Director of the ALC, Dr. Godwin Murunga, for being here and for all your assistance in ensuring that this conference takes place. Welcome also to special guests such as Dr. Cyril Obi and Professor Hiromi. You're very welcome. Welcome to staff members of the ALC who have also played a very important role in arranging this conference. Lastly, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all home, alumni of the ALC, home to Nairobi. Some of you, this is the first time for you being here in a long time, reunions for many of us, and it's really wonderful to have you all here. Thank you for coming. We also have here represented 9 cohorts, including the current fellows, and we look forward to welcoming you current fellows as alumni upon completion of your program. Colleagues, I think you'll agree with me that the experience of being an ALC Peace and Security Fellow is a life-changing experience. It is one that leaves you believing anything is possible, that change can happen on this continent, and that you can be a central and critical part of that change. Then you leave the safe haven of the center and go back to the real world, where conflicts continue to rage, leaders fight for resources and power, women and girls are abducted, unseen and unknown entities set grenades off in matatus, citizens protest in public service protests, and they destroy the very amenities that are built for their benefit. So we would all agree that peace and security in our continent continues to be a critical issue, with contemporary armed conflicts and other varieties of security threats on the continent adding to the questions that increasingly perplex the global community, and how to deal with the changing nature of security threats that defy prevailing and conventional approaches. So in an attempt to speak to some of these challenges, the theme of our conference is Peace Building and the Governance of Security in Africa, Contributions of Next Generation Scholars. I won't go too much into the theme or the concept behind it. Alfred will come and briefly talk about that once I'm done, but we hope that over the next 2 days, we will discuss what our numerous and multifaceted roles are in this field as alumni. We look forward to hearing how, as scholars, practitioners, and policy actors, how we have been, and how we will continue to contribute in new, dynamic, and unconventional ways to unraveling the complexities that exist in the field. We will also discuss how we make more audible and visible the African contribution in this field. Over the next 2 days, we will seek to also adopt the ALC Alumni Association's constitution, which has been drafted over the last 2 years since the last conference. Today, the focus will be on presentation of papers on current issues in the peace and security arena related to our theme, of course. We will also hope to develop a strategic plan for the Alumni Association for the period of 2014 to 2018. The plan will outline the association's mission and purpose, its vision, its principles and core values, and its strategic directions. We will also, of course, spend a lot of time getting to know one another for those who don't know each other across cohorts, and just networking and finding out more about the work that we are all doing. Part of our agenda will also very importantly review what our small but growing association has accomplished since it was formalized 2 years ago at the last conference. We will deliberate how, as a group of young African minds, we can more deliberately and collectively multiply the investment made in us by the ALC and be part of measurable transformation on this continent. We will also consider how we more effectively contribute to the growth and deeper institutionalization of the African Leadership Center. As I conclude, I invite us all to participate. It's not every day we have the opportunity to be together and re-enter the space where you're challenged to think, write, and be bigger than what the world out there tells us we are and can be. I look forward to hearing every voice and leaving this place more challenged than when I was a fellow. Karibuni sana.
Good morning, all alumni and guests, all protocol observed. I would like to welcome you all as the vice chair, and my name is Alfred Muteru. I think I must have communicated with everybody, but I can't see any face that doesn't know me. Okay, yeah. I don't have any more words apart to welcome you, everybody. My health hasn't been very well in the past few weeks, and I'm holding on. But despite that, I'm very excited. At least we are all here. As Shuvai said, I think I'll be talking more about the theme and the broader concept note after the other. I think Fumi and Tade. I think I'll be coming in next, but right now it's just to show you the theme, which is there. It's on peace building and the governance of security in Africa. And those are the sub-themes, mainly on the contribution of alumni and the next generation of scholars, mainly from the theme, but going on to policy development, but also the critical role of higher education, which I think quite a number of us are in universities or even in policy arenas. So that is the broad theme, and that is what will be guiding us. So thank you all. Welcome, and enjoy the ALC and Nairobi. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Wow, you know, every 2 years since 2010 that we moved into this building, this place bubbles in June. You know what it's like to have children leave home, they go to college, they go to work, they migrate to distant lands, and then Christmas arrives, or whatever else you celebrate, a wedding. And sometimes it's not so nice things that we have to celebrate, like funerals, okay? But when they come home, you can feel it. And in the last 2 or 3 days, just walking outside that door from other conferences in this room, you go out, you see the face of a child of ALC. Then you see them hugging each other, you see more and more, you see them hugging each other, and then you see them clustering in little spaces. It feels good. It feels good to have you home. Welcome home. Yeah? You can imagine, for the earlier generations, I see a few faces from, you have 9 cohorts in this room. And this is a conference that was very tightly organized because there wasn't enough money for it. And I feel bad that some of you still stayed on the queue wanting to come, even until yesterday. But this demonstrates something. It demonstrates something very, very special. I myself, if I count the number of associations that I belong to, professional associations, alumni groups, places I went to school, I'm not actually a very active member of, the alumni group of at least one of my alma maters, This is different. What makes it different, I say to myself, because the other places I go to, they bubble as well. And I think this is different because of the vision that lay behind it in the first instance. Ebenezer, my goodness. Morning. We dared to dream. We dared to dream a few years ago. And that dream is connected to what Shuvai was talking about. A continent that is ravaged by all manner of security challenges. And you can actually gather data on how much of Africa is in the news, in particular places, at the United Nations, at the African Union where Ebenezer is based, in ECOWAS, on all continents. Just do a snippet of it at any point in time and see the newsworthy things. They're not always all positive, and yet there's a lot of positive that goes on the continent. They're about all manner of weird security happenings. And that dream that we dreamt was precisely, a dream about a new continent in which all those good ideas that are dotted around the continent can begin to connect to each other and begin to send messages of transformation and alter the landscape of the continent. Okay? So when you listen to Shuvai, you think, yes, we have a family that is gathering with some new ideas. But that landscape, the threat landscape, the security landscape, just remains really, really challenged in many ways. And I think what it does, it confirms the reason why we came together in the first place. It confirms that our job is not we're not even doing it in that way yet. But the good news out of this is that dream, which is about a new generation of African leaders, generating cutting-edge knowledge to transform security discourses, all right? In order to begin to see stable peace, security, and development on the continent. That was the dream that lay behind the African Leadership Center. And it was not called the ALC at that time. It was just called, it was a knowledge building and training program. For those of you in the earlier versions, it was a fellowship program. And then we gathered you in 3s first, then in 5s. Then we then had a score, okay? And the idea was to take good ideas, committed people who are dotted in different parts of the continent, begin to connect them together, build them into a family with us. Those of us too who are dotted in different parts of the continent, because the big news in the world really is that very bad things and very bad people are very well connected. But good people are dotted in different places, keeping their heads down, just trying to do their own thing. Isn't it? Why should it be? Why can't the good ideas and good people connect with each other and try to shift the boundaries and try to shift the landscape? That is what it's all about. Little did we think at the time that there will be a place, a center, all right? There was a center mentally, spiritually, but a physical center on the continent of Africa where we will begin to see those people connect in particular ways. Little did we think, almost 10 years later, I think 10 years next year, we would have started next year will be 10 years since we started a fellowship program with this agenda. Yeah? And then we dreamt that these people will come together, begin to build their own network on their own, which is what we said in 2010. and run that network themselves and begin to look at their own issues. Look at the thematic issue you have, peace building and the governance of security in Africa. If you unpack it, it represents many of the dimensions of what we're talking about, okay? But actually what our alumni represents, you represent a pathway to our vision, okay? You represent a pathway to our vision. And why do you represent a pathway to that vision? That vision of a new landscape in Africa will not just happen by itself. It happens first in the mind. That idea is put and deposited somewhere as a seed. Then it germinates because that seed finds a way to multiply itself because it's grown, it's harvested in different ways, it's put in the ground again. And then because it creates new ideas in new minds. So those dots multiply, isn't it? The first thing that happens at the ALC, which I hear and I've heard from Shiva a couple of times, is that the person who is in this space transforms somehow because we impact one another. The big pathway is how that personal transformation becomes, a changed terrain. That is the biggest challenge that we face as an organization. But what I see in this room means that is the least daunting challenge. In the next 5 years, as we continue to plan at the ALC and plan with you, our idea is that because we have built the base, and the base is going to keep growing. It's going to keep growing because you are growing, and you are gathering more people like yourselves, that the next place where we want to see the ALC is a stage where our people with the right ideas are beginning to sit in the spaces, the landscape. They're beginning to engage with the terrain that they want to alter. And to engage with the terrain where that sort of strong, bad network exists, it means that you're already well equipped. It means that you're not at a master's level only. It means that somehow your ideas have been taken to a higher level of academic endeavor. But it means that those ideas are sitting in spaces. We call it knowledge transfer, isn't it? Either you're transferring it yourself directly or indirectly. It means we can look in the academic spaces and see PhD holders. It means we can look in the policy places and see policy decision makers. It means that we can look in places where mentoring is taking place and you are there. And so as I look in this room, I see those who were women fellows and did non-degree programs. They have upscaled to master's level academically. They have upscaled. They're sitting in PhD spaces. When you look at where the dots are being connected, they're being connected in academic institutions, mostly on the continent. They're being connected in policy spaces, mostly on the continent, but they're also being connected in academic spaces with the global world that we relate to. They're also being connected in policy places in the global world that we relate to. So let me give you examples. I see Njoki. Where is Njoki now? Are you there? Who was a woman fellow? Njoki Toyin, and some people call themselves perpetual fellows. What is it you call them? Oh, career fellows. Masters. She came back, did a master's. She's in Cambridge doing her PhD, engaging that space. That is a dot. Okay? I see Akin, another career fellow of a different kind. He applied to this fellowship 4 times. He kept applying. That is commitment and dedication. He has left the MSc space, and he's dotting the space of Paris. Is that right? You're in France. It means that that seed, that idea, it's gone to at least disrupt some other space, okay, to take us where we're going. I see Ebenezer. Ebenezer has left his mark in ECOWAS. And how did he leave his mark? He went in there as a fellow on attachment. Next thing, he was called, we want to employ you. Ebenezer is a sample that I'm talking about. He did industrial relations at the LSA and had a good job in a bank. He came to do peace and security. He got hooked somewhere along the line. He went to ECOWAS. Not only did they retain him, they started having him acting head of team. He's at the African Union. And I don't know what is happening, but I heard from the grapevine the ECOWAS wanted to bring you back to head something in mediation. If that works, That is the kind of thing we're talking about, isn't it? I see Sonia at the University of Pretoria advancing to PhD level. I see this Toyin Career Fellow at the University of Pretoria, a PhD, all right? Is okay in this room, okay is in ECOWAS. Right, I think in, oh my goodness, this is a powerful story. Fidelia. And Fidelia's personal transformation, those in her cohort know. I'm not going to mention it here. But I heard you were challenging the UK government who employed you, fighting for the rights of gay people. I hear, if those of you who were in her set know how that developed, what she brought to the ALC, all right? And then it's a situation where is Miriam? Miriam, hello, another alumni. Miriam from Burkina Faso was a journalist in Senegal. She went to ECOWAS, a donor hooked her, GIZ. So they said recruit some expert to come into this place. She said, okay, I'm going to recruit. She recruited Fidelia as the expert. Do you understand? Do you understand how they're beginning to totally disrupt that policy space? And I sat in 1 or 2 meetings and I saw the ideas and the agendas they were putting on the table. I said to myself, these people are in trouble. Because in ECOWAS, at least in Abuja, you have 4 or 5, if not more, ALC people. It's happening at the African Union or in Ethiopia through IPSS as well. That is what I'm talking about, that we're supposed to just do that, spray the environment. Because you have prepared people with loads of good ideas, people who are committed. And actually, people ask me, what is so special about your ALC fellows? I always say, wait till you see them. But I tell them, I guarantee you that there's a profile you will see when you see an ALC fellow. And I've not yet been disappointed. I heard Alago, who hates to speak. He's such a scholar, he does not like speaking. I heard him at UNECA, all right? That is now the global space. The way he was challenging some theories in this place, I said, Alago opened his mouth, he spoke, and then he's taking these people on. Look at Pascal there. So a military guy by training, when we interviewed you twice or thrice. We were not sure, what is it he wants on this program? He already has a master's, and then he says, I'm a retired major. And he was only 31 or 30, retired. And he got hooked. He's at the space of the United Nations doing ALC things. So some people then come and say, okay, maybe you're right. Your fellows, we saw them in ECOWAS. My goodness, ECOWAS people are excited. But the person who said, I saw your fellows, I want to congratulate you, is at the Royal Institute of International Affairs in Chatham House, an English guy. Because these are people who are skeptical about, what are you talking about? A bunch of Africans, all right? Isn't it? And even at King's, we were told we will not lower our standards for Africans. Very insulting. They came back and said, when are your fellows coming? Congratulations, because year after year, distinction materials are from amongst our fellows. The year we had 7 fellows, we had 3 distinctions. The other year we had 10, we had 4 distinctions. This year, I know it. I don't yet know. It's not my way of releasing your results, okay? But I know we will have at least 3 distinctions this year on our fellowship program. So I am proud. Jimam, you're one of the early generations. That PhD is about to be in hand, I think. That is an example of what we're talking about. Raymond has crisscrossed West Africa. Belachu, Ethiopian, who lives in Abuja. That is the idea. I need not say, what differentiates you, as I understand it, is the core values that you hold and your commitment to excellence, time and time again. And the way actually we see your arguments transform in the terrain that you occupy. You dare to challenge established notions and frameworks and assumptions. You dare. I sit in meetings, or sometimes I'm not there, and they tell me, that differentiates you. But that pursuit of excellence, independent thinking, isn't it? All right? African-led ideas of change. Integrity. You should be saying your core values with me at this moment, isn't it? And diversity, respect for diversity in all its forms. And lastly, youth agency. There's no other institution who embodies this in that way and adds it to a transformative agenda and then puts thinking people and scholarship on the ground to marry it and then fling those people outside, spray them into the world. That's what the ALC is about. And that's why I'm proud at this point in time that we've not been resting easy. We have not been resting easy. You've been doing your thing, we've been doing our thing. But I'm at a point where I can tell you, I look at people at the ALC who themselves did not go through the fellowship, but who went through the association of friends, like-minded people, who worked in other places and still came to hang out at King's twice or thrice a week. And they got infected the way I got infected too, okay? In London, so those of you know, you can count Eka, you can count Fumi Vogt, you can count Penda, those who are not here today, Martin Hagen, Wale Ismail, you can keep reeling off those names, those who worked part-time to make this work. And then I got to Nairobi, I met another group of infectious people. Infectious. Both, they joined the board, but they also started carrying the torch. And the torch of Godwin Murunga is a very, very interesting one because he had built his ideological home in Kodesria. Isn't it? A historian. And then he embraces peace and security. It's more powerful when you see those economies, the Ekas and the Godwins, they come from another discipline. It's like when somebody joins the church or the mosque. They're more, fervent on that issue. And actually, that's how we get some radicalization and some extremism too. Or when scientists come into social sciences, they take it like the Bible or the Quran. This is what I'm leaving behind at the ALC. And when you marry all of those people on fire for change on the African continent, on fire for transformation on the African continent, with all those core values, the bad networks are in trouble. All right? I say this is what I'm leaving behind at the ALC because I know you have heard around the corridors that actually this is my Monday will be my last working day as director of the African Leadership Center. I leave it in a fantastic shape. All right? I leave it at the high point where it's shifting gear to a new momentum because I've left it to those fervent people who are carrying the torch in a different way. I've left you to Godwin Murunga, to Fumi Vogt, to Eka, and the entire network. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm very happy that I'm doing so. I think it's a wonderful time to be living. So for you to be sending me off in this way, it's a very proud moment. And on that note, I call on the torch holder, the bearer of the torch that I'm passing, to truly welcome you. All right? I'm happy to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fumi. You will have noticed that Fumi spoke mainly in retrospect. She wasn't looking forward, she was looking at what has happened. And there's a former Ugandan vice chancellor who once said, the tragedy in life is not that you did not realize your dream. The tragedy is if you never dreamt at all. And I think Fumi dreamt. And for that reason, I think we need to clap again for her. Thank you very much, Fumi. And thank you very much for all of you who took time out of your busy schedules to come and join us today and tomorrow. It is not something that we take for granted. It is something that we appreciate very much. Often when I meet former fellows who have been on the program who live in Nairobi and they haven't paid us a visit, I complain to them directly. And I think that this is a moment when we feel very proud that the African Leadership Center is indeed populated by a network of people who make a difference, not just to the center, but to Africa. And I think that I want to take this opportunity to welcome you, to thank you very much again, and to wish you a very good conference. And in doing that, I would just like to make perhaps 2 or 3 points that I think are important. For me, it is important that this day is happening. And it is important that it's happening partly because I am a product of very good mentoring. Not at the ALC, but definitely across the continent. I am a product of very good mentoring. Those of you who do not know, my first ever academic article was actually published by Professor Tade Aina. And for me, it was a very interesting moment arriving in Codesria. I did not have a master's degree yet, but to find people who are willing to listen, people who are willing to challenge you, but people who are also willing to provoke you to do things in a different way. And so for me, Professor Aina, it's very special that you are here today and that you are providing guidance to not just me, but to the rest of the team here. I really do appreciate that, and it seems to me that things are really connecting in a way that we would not even have planned. And I want to use that moment to thank you, but to also say that I feel like it's also a great moment for the African Leadership Center to be experiencing transition. And the nature of the transition that we are experiencing is almost seamless and almost unnoticeable, because it's not a transition that is going to shift the ideas that led to its founding. It's not a transition that is going to change what we aimed to do. It's going to be a transition that begins to help us focus on consolidating our network. And I think that the alumni network is going to be very critical to this, partly because we have done very badly in projecting our voices as Africans. We have done very badly in projecting our voices to the world, and not to claim that we are special about what we say, but to really say we can make that change that we need to make across the continent and in the world. So for those of you who are hearing about the transition today, I think you need to rest assured that we are going into a direction that represents consolidation, not that it does not represent change. And I want to commit publicly and with my colleagues here to begin to work with the alumni network in a structured way to be able to begin to realize some of those things that each one of you has been undertaking in your small places, that we need to begin to think about how to network those efforts. So my role here is really very simple, to begin to say that we want a structured relationship that represents a togetherness, that will not fragment our voices but consolidate them. And so that we can be able in 2 years or 3 years' time to say, when Fumi left us, she left us an idea, and the idea has grown. I want to take this moment to thank you again very much. I did not prepare any elaborate speech, but I knew that it was going to be a moment for us to celebrate Fumi and to celebrate the ALC and to engage together, all of us. So I will want to stop there and hand over the mic to Shuvai. No, I think it's me. So thank you very much for this moment.